Order, say, this is the Harwich Housing Committee meeting for February 13th, 2025 at 4 p.m. So then anyone who comes across it knows what it is.
Okay, cool.
And
Take a
then
head count.
we take the roll.
Roll call.
So
Claudia Williams.
Elizabeth Harder.
Art Bowden.
Go. Now you go into the,
And you can put down Mary Malowski, absent.
and since we only have 4 right now, this is a quorum.
Okay, great. And then we do the
So-
audience introductions?
If you wish.
I do.
Well,
Okay.
then go
You're running the
ahead.
show. Good.
Let's introduce people from the audience, if that's okay.
I could start if you want. So I'm Brianna Nickerson, the new housing advocate. I started in December, so I've been here just about 2 months. Previously, I was at Housing Assistance Corporation as a housing counselor. And then before that, I was at Cape Cod 5 in different roles for a number of years. So I've been spending a lot of my time kind of meeting with other towns and see what similar people in my role are doing and researching different program options.
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, I'm David Burney, Harwich resident, just observing.
Nice. Hi,
Great.
David.
Thank you.
Brendan Lowney from the Affordable Housing Trust.
Well, I'm sorry, what was your name?
Brendan Lowney
Okay.
from the Affordable Housing Trust.
And I'm Cindy Williams, Executive Director of the Harwich Chamber.
Thank you all for coming.
Thanks.
Online, we have Paul. Paul, will you introduce yourself, please?
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Halkiotis, and I am the new Planning and Community Development Director. I started the same week that Brianna started in December. So I'm still learning my way around and getting to know people, and that will be ongoing for a while.
Great.
Awesome. Thank you. So the first order is the committee reorg. We don't have minutes because when we met last time, we recorded and we were under the impression we didn't have to do minutes, but since then I've talked to the town clerk, and we'll make sure those are submitted going forward. So committee reorg, chair, vice chair, and secretary. Yeah.
If you'd like it,
Yeah.
I think we should make you chair since you were on it in its latest incarnation. So you have the institutional knowledge of what happened since Art was here.
Just to be clear, I've only been to 2 meetings in my year and half on the committee because they weren't meeting
Right.
for a long time.
okay.
And then we've only had a couple meetings where we've had a forum, just in, in terms of my credibility and background. So, again, if anybody else would prefer to do that, I think it's a pretty even playing field at this point, so.
I'd like to nominate Elizabeth Harder for the chair.
I second that.
I'm outvoted. Okay. I accept. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for accepting.
And then do you want to be, since I asked you first, do you want to be vice chair or stay secretary?
Vice chair sounds good, then I can kind of cover for you.
Okay, you want
But-
to be secretary? I can
I'm
do the
I'm a terrible
secretary.
secretary, so
I
I'll have
can
to.
do the
I'll have to decline. I'll nominate Claudia to be a secretary, because she was a secretary way back when and did an excellent job.
Does that mean before I accept that, does that mean we're not going to do a vice president, or are we
We
saying?
don't have to.
Okay.
Yeah, let's
I
not
think right now we
for
only have 3
now.
people, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
We need 2 more people on the committee.
So do
at
we have
that
a
point-
second on
at that
keeping
point,
me
we
as
find
secretary?
Someone to take over secretary, and then you take over vice chair.
Sounds good.
Sound good?
A second on
So,
my
second
secretary?
For
Okay.
you, secretary for now.
Okay.
Vote in affirmative.
Aye.
All right.
Okay. 2.
Nice.
Okay, that out of the way.
Brianna.
Yeah, well, I kind of jumped the gun and.
Well, no, that was,
Already.
it shows that I think for TV, I don't think anybody else is on besides Paul, but if you don't want to set up that mic at least, maybe? I think, or do we have another mic?
Would be better have her sit right here, or?
You've got a mic, I've got a mic. This.
I think it's just if you wanted to say more, right?
Not really.
Yeah.
Unless you guys have any questions or anything.
We will.
Okay.
Well, we have some good.
Sorry,
questions.
they made
I
me
think
chair,
we
I
do.
have a big mouth. So, first, you were saying you were meeting with other towns? Tell us about that. Who are you meeting with? And
So far, I've met with Falmouth and a little bit with Chatham. That wasn't a deep meeting, but I plan to meet with Brewster. I met with Yarmouth, Provincetown, work my way back, try to do all surrounding towns.
Great. Where's she? Brewster now. Jill Scalise?
Yeah.
Do you know her?
I haven't met her yet.
She, I suggest, should be a soon phone call. She's Brewster, and she's their coordinator now. And also in Brewster used to be on the CPC, Kalanick, Donna Kalanick.
Donna Cullen.
Okay.
And Donna used to be on the CPC. She lives in Harwich. So they'd be really, I think, I'm not directing you to do that. I'm just suggesting.
Oh, no, I was
I'm just
planning on meeting with them
suggesting
anyways, yeah.
as good people to talk to. Brewster is really ahead of everybody, and so is Orleans.
Okay.
Because they have Jill and Donna, and they're really good.
Yeah.
So they can really, when I first started at the Housing Authority, any question I had, I would call Jill or Donna and go, what do I do?
I think I mentioned to you, I'd suggest Mary Wiegand from Yarmouth.
I already met with her, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
talk to
She's
Mary.
great,
She's the walk and talk and
Yeah.
Bible
Yeah.
on housing.
Yeah, and Falmouth does a really good job
Yeah.
as well. So Kim Fish in Falmouth is who I met with.
Oh,
She's
good.
great, yeah.
Good. You're off to a good start.
Yeah.
And now what have you been, we all talk about committee charges. What have you been charged with doing by the town? What have they told you your responsibilities are?
I'm just like a liaison between committees, education for the public about housing, come up with different programs, look into different programs for what we can do to help develop housing, get more people into housing, all things housing related.
Okay.
Not tied to, just moderate to low income. I can work with all.
Great. And I'm sure you're just starting this. One of the problems with housing on the Cape is that there are 175,000 groups doing housing on the Cape. And so it's hard to tell who's doing what and to what end and for what reason. And I know you were at one of the Housing to Protect Cape Cod meetings.
Yeah.
So I think, part of this committee's way to help you and help the town is, if people agree, is to figure out all the different organizations and who would be helpful to Harwich and who wouldn't.
Yeah, okay. I'll put that in my notes to look into.
Because there are a lot of them. And I'm right now on the assembly, we're doing housing because of ARPA money. So we've got $11 million to give towards housing of ARPA money that, in a way that was suggested by the ARPA Advisory Committee that the commissioners set up with Paul Nedzwicki and Dorothy Savarese and Dan Wolf and, the big muckety mucks to get their opinion of you know, what the challenges are facing the Cape. So there's housing going on everywhere. And I think for everybody, its first order of business is going to be figuring out what could be helpful for us, maybe.
Well, I think part of our agenda obviously is to talk about the goals and objectives. What is our charter? I think I'm going to back up a little bit, a little broader scope in terms of the discussion, and I think hopefully that's where we're going to start to create some substance and some definitions, right? Is what we've been lacking seriously is an idea of what we should be working on. What support we have for that, what funding we have for that, what it looks like. So I think, we're all really excited about both you and Paul, having Liz and Art start, trying to, get, some energy behind it. But I think what you're suggesting as well, and maybe plays into my point, is that I think we have a lot of people that are really focused on creating housing and how to best do that, what's the most efficient way to do that. But when I was on this committee years and years ago, before the trust was in place, it was very clear what we were supposed to do, which was kind of everything. So working with the town planner, but the town planner was the person who kind of put things into action. But we did the housing plan, we worked with consultants, we did education, we did advocacy, we did outreach. We identified properties, we met with developers, we talked about who and what they wanted to do, we figured out how to present that, we brought it to the selectmen, we worked with the housing authority. It was really all-encompassing, which is not right or wrong, but now that the trust is here, since I've started, my question has been, so what are we responsible for? And unfortunately, within the committee, there hasn't been a clear understanding of that, and I think that's still there. So I definitely get what you're saying in terms of how we're going to work together. The bullets after this point are going to be talking about like what are Paul and Brianna's understanding, as town officials, and what we'll be charged with. I think like you're finding out probably, Brianna, and I'm sure Paul already knows, is all towns do it differently. So I've been looking at Wellfleet. I was on the board of the CDP. So there's a lot of different people doing it a lot of different ways, and a lot of people are doing it in a way that works. Harwich hasn't found a way that works yet. So I think we're all kind of, really looking forward to, how can we be productive instead of everybody. I think we all agree, we all want housing, we all want affordable housing, we all want whatever we want to call it, workforce housing. But I'll turn that ringer off. But how do we work together so we're all going in the same direction instead of maybe being at odds or overlapping significantly? So anyways, I just kind of wanted to interject that because I think we're going to kind of get more into that. If that's okay with, you and Paul, and definitely creating the agenda. But, so maybe, in terms of intro, maybe we pause there and ask, Paul to do an intro, and then we kind of circle back and have a broader discussion. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That's
Yeah, we need to know what Paul's job is, so we know what we can do for you and all that.
Thanks. I apologize for not being there in person. I had some foot surgery last week and some new hardware added to my foot.
Oh.
So I'm working from home this week, and I look forward to being able to meet you all in person. I do have some experience working on a wide range of different housing issues over the last 34 years. Most recently, in my position in the town of Norwood, I worked with a sub-region of the Boston Metropolitan Area Planning Council, the regional planning agency for the 101 cities and towns in the Boston metropolitan area. That big area of 101 cities and towns is broken up into like 5 or 6 sub-regions, and the planners from each sub-region get together monthly and talk about various planning issues. A few years ago, we had a discussion about things that we wanted to focus on for the next year. And all of the planners kind of raised their hand and said that they did not have a handle on affordable housing issues, that they didn't have the staff or the time to really focus on housing the way they thought they needed to be. There were certain requirements for rental 40B units that annually people's incomes needed to be reviewed to make sure that they were still income eligible to be living in that location. And there are other things that all the planners kind of agreed they really weren't taking care of these matters the way they thought they should be. So I had heard about a regional housing consortium that was up in the Reading, Wilmington area, a little bit north of Boston. And I was able to secure 2 different grants to investigate the feasibility of creating a regional housing organization in that area of the state around Norwood, including towns like Hopkinton and Walpole and Foxborough. That project went on for 3 years and was kind of put on ice for a year during the pandemic. But where we are today with the project is that there were, from a bigger group that started out being interested, 6 communities opted in, and they opted into having their selectmen enter into a memorandum of understanding of how this regional housing organization would function, the tasks that they would be working on, the assistance they'd be providing to the member communities. So I was kind of the project leader of this and secured the grants, and I kind of left it right when it was about to be established, and they were about to go out to bid to find a consulting firm that would take on these tasks, or a group of individuals that would form the leadership of this affordable housing consortium. Having said all that, I'll go back to one of the comments that was just made about all of these different housing organizations on the Cape. And I'm just learning about them. I don't know what each one does. And I would suggest that what we did back in Norwood may not be needed here because there's already so many organizations that are focused on housing issues. Brianna and I had a conversation this afternoon, and it was a conversation where neither one of us were certain what role we were going to be playing, both in providing staff support to your committee and what we should be doing related to moving the affordable housing efforts forward. And so we're going to have a conversation with Joe Powers and get some clarity from him on who's going to do what. And when I say who's going to do what, down to the little things like who was going to post your meeting a couple weeks ago. And so we need to kind of get some administrative things understood with the boss, and then communicate that to the committee. So I am interested in affordable housing, and I understand that it's the big issue that's facing the Cape. I'm hoping to be able to bring some of my experience to benefit the town on this, and I'm looking forward to working closely with the committee and with Brianna and with the Affordable Housing Trust on moving some initiatives forward, educating the public, and trying to make some adjustments to the zoning regulations, things that are kind of like within my wheelhouse that I might be able to do to help the effort to go forward.
Great. Thank you.
That's awesome, thank you.
I think that's why we were here today, was just try to figure out what everybody thinks their job is. And then
Well,
figure out
I just
how
want
to do
to
it.
interject here because, I come from the past and now I'm in the future. And the past is the past and the future is the future. Anyways, we've already cleared one big hurdle already today. We formed the committee. We got a chair and we got a secretary and we got a quorum. we've done more in the last couple minutes than was done in a year. Okay, so now, okay, that's out of the way. We have the organization, and now on top of the organization, we have Paul and we have Brianna that are kind of spearheading. Paul's in a different situation. He's the town planner. He's not, I don't think he's going to be spearheading any of the committees and/or the housing problem as such. He's going to be augmenting it or something like that. But Brianna here, she is the point of the spear. That's why they hired you, okay? And she knows that. From the conversation I had with you earlier, which was in passing, and what Joe Powers said, all things housing will flow to Brianna and flow back out. So in other words, we won't be going around and bumping into each other. Who's doing what? Brianna's going to be the kind of the linchpin of the whole operation when it comes to housing. Because
Is that your understanding?
maybe it's not.
Yeah, I mean, I have to talk to Joe about,
Yeah.
But
yes, being very involved, absolutely.
You are the town housing advocate,
Yes.
and it's your full-time job.
Yep.
It's not a part-time, not a volunteer or anything like that. So you're the person. I don't see us going to Joe. I don't see us going to Mike McCaskill or anybody else. We're going to go to you on a housing issue. And I think our assignments will kind of flow back out through you.
Mm-hmm.
Am I wrong?
Well, I don't know if you're right or wrong because I don't have somebody telling me that. And I think to Paul's point,
Well-
if Joe Powers says that that's how it's going to be and he has said that, then I just want to make sure that we have confirmation on that.
Well, no, we can get him in the room here and he can stand here and he'll tell us. Because I lived through the past, the wreckage. I wasn't part of the wreckage, but I was there. And on the field of housing. And I saw what happened. I was in the housing committee and we didn't have a lane. So what we have to do as a committee, and all the committees need to have, what is their lane and what to do. But we're gonna take, from my understanding, is our direction is gonna come from Brianna, from her office to us.
That's not my understanding.
Yeah, I guess I want to make sure that we're all, being really respectful of each other's opinions, and I definitely respect your opinion on that, and I that's great if it's true. It sounds like you have a different opinion. I also hear Paul saying that he and Brianna met earlier and do not totally understand what their charge is yet, so I think that is really the starting point, is once you two have time to get acclimated and know what that is, then I do believe that information will come from Paul and Brianna and possibly Joe. I don't necessarily need Joe to say it. I just want to make sure that we're taking our cues from the new organization as well. The idea in the past was let's create what our charge is and hope it fits in. So I think it's nice to, I feel really hopeful and grateful for both of you to be able to, put us to some use so that we're effective and not, creating our own charge based on what we think and our small little section of things. So, sorry, Paul, you wanted to say something?
Please.
So I'm going to suggest that at our next meeting in March, we invite Joe Powers to attend the meeting. He is not only the chair of the Affordable Housing Trust, he's Brianna and my supervisor. So he's the one that can help all of us understand what he wants the staff to be doing and what he'd like to see the Housing Committee doing. And then it's very important that we maintain open lines of communication between the Housing Trust and the Housing Committee. One thing that residents don't like to see is one hand of town government not knowing what the other hand is doing. And that can be really embarrassing if we're overlapping or duplicating effort. So it's important that the staff know what the boss wants us to do. And as the chairman of the Affordable Housing Trust, he can say to the Housing Committee, well, this year we're going to focus on the development of the Marshline property to create some affordable housing there. And that's what we're going to be doing. But it would be great if the Housing Committee could continue to do the things that the chair mentioned happened a few years ago when the Housing Committee was more active. The list of things that you said that the committee was involved with a few years ago seemed right on target for what you need to continue to do. But we want to make sure that we're all on the same page with the Housing Trust.
Perfect. I love it. Well said. Thank you.
So I think a general consensus would be, at our next meeting,
Right.
and hopefully it'll be next month, that we invite Mr. Powers to our meeting and communicate to him that it's going to be a working meeting, so come prepared with some ideas. Not that I think he always walks around with plenty of ideas in his head. No one has to tell him to come up with some ideas. He's pretty good at that. But specifically, we're looking at what is the Housing Committee's role going to be, and everyone hear it in the room together at the same time, so there's no misunderstanding, you know. And if you're available, I hope you come to all our meetings.
Oh,
Anyway.
I'll be at all of them.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's great.
So,
That's-
Paul, on that and Brianna, just in terms of inviting Joe, because I know, like you said, we're definitely still at the admin stages. Would you guys take care of inviting him to the meeting, and then I'll put him on the agenda? So as the secretary, I'll submit the minutes. I'll continue to do the agenda the way we're doing it. But anyway, so you guys are okay inviting him? Okay, and I'll put it on the agenda.
We have a
Can anyone hear
caller.
me?
Yeah.
It's Mary.
Hi,
Oh, hey, Mary.
Hi. So I thought I had told people that I couldn't make a meeting before 5 o'clock.
You-
So I was just going to come at 4:30 because I work till 4:30. So I was just
So,
going out the door and I saw that we were posted for 4.
come
So
on
I don't know
over.
how that happened.
Come on
but-
down.
Come on down.
Come on.
We
So
can
I
always,
apologize for
we
just
can always
getting on
pause.
now.
We can always pause the meeting if we need to wait for you, but, if you
Or you can
wanna
stay on the
stay on
phone
the
till you
phone,
get here?
you can stay on the phone,
Yeah,
or you
no,
can
I'll
come.
stay on the phone. That's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so we've heard from Claudia and Art. What do you think the committee's charge is?
Well, wait, just before you say that, I don't think that's necessarily the question. I think, just to recap, Mary, if you don't mind, we,
Yep, no, go right ahead.
yeah, we had, we talked about, we just did intros, who's here, Paul and Brianna checked in, gave us some background, which was great. Then we did our sort of, elected officials, so Liz accepted the chairperson, I remain as secretary, but we definitely acknowledge that you were not here, so we can certainly do something different going forward, but we just wanted to get that settled for today.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, I guess one of the things I would have said is that I don't think we were really needed a reorganization because I would have thought you would have taken the chair in Joe's place, being that you were the one that had been that was kind of next in line.
That's
and
what-
I say that only because we typically reorganize in July under the charter.
Okay.
So, but you know, whatever you guys have decided to do, I obviously wasn't there, so it's certainly fine. I'm sure.
I
Whatever
wanted
you
her to
decided
take it.
is fine.
Yeah, Mary, we'll make sure that, we just touch on it when we're all here at our next meeting, make sure everybody's good with how it landed, and we
Yeah,
can.
no, it's fine.
Okay.
I mean, that's totally fine. However you voted, you voted. You voted at a public meeting and you had a quorum, so that's completely fine.
But
The other thing we talked about was just sort of the idea of, Paul and Brianna, gave us a little bit more information, and, Paul was letting us know that he and Brianna had talked earlier, and that, they're in their roles, just recently, and they are still not 100% clear in terms of how they're going to be, focusing on housing and the roles with the committees and the trust. So they're going to meet with Joe and get some clarification on that, and then bring that back to this group, as opposed to us trying to kind of figure out what it is outside of that conversation. So we decided to invite Joe Powers to the next meeting. And Paul and Brianna will make sure he knows that, and we'll make sure that's on the agenda, and then we can have that discussion and really go from there. And that's kind of where we are.
That makes sense, because we can't direct Brianna and Paul in what they do on a day-to-day basis from a
Correct.
practical standpoint.
Right.
They report to the town administration, so that all makes sense, and we've been doing this for years and still don't know how we're all fitting in, so I don't know how we could expect them to know.
Exactly.
Just quick into the game.
Right.
They just got here. I mean, I do think they need time to just get acclimated and figure out the situation here. One of the
absolutely.
things that I wanted to suggest was the makeup of the housing committee. I do think that whenever anybody talk about what the committee's role is, it all, regardless of what people can have different opinions about what the committee should be doing, but everyone agrees communication between everyone is key. So I want to suggest we've got an Affordable Housing Trust member, and I want to suggest we have two open spots, that we should get a planning board member and Affordable Housing Trust member on the committee.
On which
So you
committee?
already have your planning board member.
Oh, we only have,
That's me.
You only want,
what? Oh, we only have one
we
space.
only have
I'm on
one
planning
vacancy.
board, So,
But you're
I am
on,
on planning board, so I'm just saying that shouldn't
I'm,
even necessarily, I don't care if you want a second planning board member, but I am one, so.
yeah, no, that's
that's
perfect. That's
just
perfect.
Some respect.
That's perfect, because then we have one open spot, and I think maybe an Affordable Housing Trust member, so that that way everybody's in the room communicating.
Yep. I mean, ultimately, it's up to the selectmen what we're composed by, because we're selectmen's advisory committee.
Right.
So whatever they decide is.
But if we
And whatever we do
ask,
is we're supposed to be doing what they want us to do. We're supposed
Right.
to be, technically, we're supposed to be advising them, and we're also supposed to be meeting with the trust once a year to try and advise on what the annual, on what we think, along with the trust, should be the housing activities for the year.
but who decided
And
it's
we
only
tried that
once a
meeting.
year? Who
What
decided,
did you say, Elizabeth?
who decided that the committee only meets with the Affordable Housing Trust once a year?
There's a requirement in the trust documents or in the bylaw that we meet with the trust annually to come up with a plan for the year. That's part of the charge.
That's part
So
of
we
their
attended
charge.
that, and
Right.
Joe and I were we didn't have a quorum at the meeting, so we sat through the meeting and we talked about it. But we didn't have our housing committee didn't have a quorum at the time. I think it was maybe before Claudia had joined us.
Right. Well, I think that, if you look at what happened in the past, and Paul said it himself, it's communication is the key. And if we want this committee to be effectual in any way, we need to have more than one meeting a year with the Affordable Housing Trust. And if the trust
I don't
doesn't,
I don't disagree with you. I think that was just, that was the first time that we had actually had a meeting with the trust when Joe scheduled it
Right.
as a joint meeting. Like, that was the first time we had had it in the 3 years that it had existed, so.
Right. And,
We at least attempted it this time around.
and the thing about, if we could have better if we could have someone from the trust on the committee, it makes communication that much easier. And, you know, then everybody who's doing housing now in Harwich will be able to give a report of what they've been up to. And then it's not up to Paul and Brianna. I mean, we're sort of here to help them. They're not here to help us. It's
Right.
the way I look at it.
Well, they
So,
have their own charges, right?
Right.
They have their own jobs besides
exactly. And if,
what we're trying to do.
like, one of the things we were talking to Brianna about early was, you know, there's 750 different organizations doing housing, and who could figure out which ones could help Harwich. And so I don't know, you know, we can ask Brianna if that's what she wants to do, or if she'd like us to help her with that, or for us to do it. I mean, whatever, you know, I think our job is really to get all of the information together so that everyone can do their jobs.
Yeah. Yeah, I look at it more like we're around to support this. We're around to support housing.
Right.
Trust, the authority, whatever housing is going on in Harwich, we're here to support it.
Exactly.
I wonder if for the meeting with Joe, we take bullets 3 and 5. So discuss goals and objectives for 2023, and then actually 3, 4, and 5, right? Discuss the committee charge, and then also any expectations or preferences in terms of how the committee and the trust communicate going forward. Because I think it goes both ways. So even if we had somebody on the trust here, I think we have an obligation to make sure we know what they're doing. So
Agreed.
I think that would be nice to hear from him, and then we could, again, as you said, and we're all saying, then we figure out how do we support the various groups and the different people that are involved. So that definitely is our job, to support.
That makes sense to me.
Okay, Art,
I like to
sorry,
add,
I feel like I'm acting like the chair, I'm sorry.
I like to add a little point here. Okay, we have one open position on the committee. And as far as the communication between other committees, between the Housing Committee and the Trust, I think as an ongoing thing, various members from the Housing Committee have just taken it upon themselves to go to the Housing Trust meetings and report back. So I don't think we need a member from the Housing Trust to be a member on our committee, in that we only have 5 members. I would like to see us attract a person that's maybe not, you gotta get the right word here now, associated with housing right now. Maybe is friendly to it or interested in it from the community, and coming forward and being our 5th member. I think that would balance off the committee better. And I would look at the trust as saying, oh my God, there's one other meeting we got to go to. So, you know, if you ask a trust member to be on the housing committee, then the person says, well, there's one more meeting I got to go to.
Well,
And that circle goes around town quite a bit. I mean, you know, we have members on the CPC that remember back and forth, crisscrossing back and forth, which in itself it's good, but after a while, the people that are involved get smaller and smaller. We got to reach out further. I'm for somebody at large that maybe just interested in housing, or maybe just walked and said, geez, that's a fancy word, I wonder what it is, and I'll think I'll join that committee and see if I can add to it, you know, I think everyone has an idea on housing, good, bad, or indifferent. And I think that the vacancy should be open to that person.
Okay. Point of chair gets to do what she wants. There's a word for that, but I don't know what it is. At the behest of the chair, may I ask if the member of the audience who is a member of the Housing Trust would like to weigh in on this?
As far as having someone on the committee.
Right.
I think it might be a question for Joe. I do agree. I think it's a good idea. It's one of the reasons why I showed up today. To maybe have that connection. I know you were short on members. If you need someone temporary, I was willing to do that for that reason. But I think it's something Joe might have to address as well. So it'd be nice to have the chair weigh in on that.
Okay.
But more than happy to be part of that if needed.
Oh,
Thank you. And Claudia, your thoughts?
Hi, Brendan.
I agree. I think it would be great to have both somebody here and there, so in both meetings. I don't know if it needs, I think it's great if you're willing to do that temporarily, and then with Joe Powers figuring out what makes the most sense. Maybe it's somebody from our committee that's going. I know in the past, we had a select person that was in all those meetings, so they were our liaison. I know that's Mary
Right.
Anderson, so maybe I reach out to her and invite her also to the next meeting, just so we have everybody in the same room, and see if there's any agreements on what that looks like from her role, because I know our liaison in the past was very aware of what was going on within the select.
I think that's a good idea, Claudia.
All right, so we'll see what the best course of action. I like, obviously, the goal is to definitely get more communication, like Art's saying, and we all agree. It's just what makes the most sense. So we'll hammer that out probably next meeting with Joe here.
Right. Great.
Paul, anything to add?
Agree with that approach. It sounds like a logical way to go forward.
Okay.
All righty. Mary, anything you want to pipe in with now before we let Paul and
No,
Brianna
not at
go?
all. No, not at all. I think that's great. I'm sorry I wasn't there in person.
No,
I figured at this point it was faster to get on the phone than to try and drive there.
no, it's my bad. I forgot you said you couldn't do 4. It's my bad.
No problem.
So let Brianna and Paul go as long as we can figure out. Let's skip ahead and figure out our next meeting date.
Yeah, hang on one second if you don't mind. I just want to make sure we know what we're doing with the agenda. So we're, just for everybody's purposes and people looking on, if they're looking at the agenda, why we're not covering things. So we have discussion of goals and objectives for 2023. We're tabling till the next meeting. Review and discussion of the committee charge. We're tabling and regrouping next meeting. Coordinating and communication with the Housing Trust, tabling and doing next meeting.
right.
Recap of the Housing Huddle
We'll
meeting.
get to that after. If we can do all that after Paul and Brianna can go.
Do they need to go? I don't
I
understand
would-
why they're going.
Well,
I need to
Brianna
leave
has
at
to
5
go
for
get her
child.
kids.
Got it. Okay, cool.
And
Thank you.
they
I'm
don't
like,
need-
what am I missing?
They don't need to listen to us, you know. At least Brianna doesn't. Let's pick the.
So are we saying that we're gonna just table the rest of it and close out the meeting so that we can close out and reschedule the next meeting?
I would like to get an idea from Paul and Brianna when they think they'd be available and what day of the week is. I mean,
Yeah,
we're
let's start with
scheduled
days and
for
times.
Mondays, but Mondays are tough because you guys, a lot of times, will have to be called up before the select board meeting, so you'll have
Mondays.
2 meetings or back-to-back meetings. So
Tuesday I have planning board, and Wednesday I have historic, and Thursday I have CPC this week, so.
Right, but in the future, are there any nights that we could come to a consensus on? You know, I mean, CPC is second Thursday, could we do third Thursday?
Probably.
'Cause
At what time?
At 4? I mean, at
I
5.
I
At
work
5.
I work until 4:30, so.
Right. So,
Time is the earliest I can be in person.
if we can do it at 5, because hopefully Brianna won't, it's not like you come and we tell you what to do. You're gonna ask us for help, hopefully, and you can do that with email, so I think it would be a rare occurrence when you'd wanna.
I'd like to attend all of them if I can.
Yeah.
If there's a remote option, just because my kids, their school closes and my husband's changing job,
Right.
kids and life. I could always join at 5 if there's a remote option.
Oh, okay.
That could work pretty
can do
much any
5.
day except for Mondays and Fridays currently.
Okay.
Okay.
So if we say third Thursdays at 5? Or would you
That's
prefer?
fine.
That works for me. I don't know if it works for
That's good, Mary?
he plans on it, but
That's fine.
Paul, is that okay?
I think that'll work for me.
Okay. So that makes it, what's the date?
So then the next one will be March 16th.
Okay, at 5. Okay,
Excellent.
so I'll just move all of these to the next agenda. Is that what everybody's wanting me to do?
We've done most of it. The only thing is the local comprehensive plan update. We don't have one yet, do we?
Yeah, I can give you a quick update. If Donna's gotta go take care of her kids, don't stay for this and I can catch up with you later.
Thank you, Brianna.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Brianna.
So I attended my first local comprehensive planning committee meeting in January, and they had one last week that I wasn't able to attend because of my surgery. I worked on a request for proposals for the town to send out to hire a consulting firm to update our local comprehensive plan. The RFP is, it's pretty lengthy, and it's been sent to Joe Powers and Megan Aldridge for their review and approval. I know that the administration's been really focusing on the budget over the last few weeks, and Joe said that, once he comes and gets that off his desk, he'll have time to review the RFP and give me some feedback so we can move forward.
Great.
What's of importance to communicate to you is that I'm proposing something that I'm not sure at this point whether we're going to be able to do it, but it's going to be something that we're going to discuss further. As most of you are probably aware, the town's housing production plan has expired. There are some benefits that the town has from a State Department of Housing and Community Development approved housing production plan, and right now we're not enjoying any of those benefits. There aren't a lot of them, and it has to do with 40Bs and multiple 40Bs all at once. But having said that, and given the circumstances of what's going on in town with housing being such an important topic, it is time to update that plan and review the recommendations from the last plan. And from what I'm told, many of those recommendations are still valid and still, will provide good direction for us to continue in until we have the new approved plan. So with that plan being expired, what I've added or built into the RFP is a requirement that the consultants not just do a chapter in the plan on housing, but to do a chapter that could serve as a standalone housing production plan that would satisfy the state's requirements for certification. I don't know if this is doable, and this is something that Joe and I are going to look into, and we'll probably invite feedback from consulting firms on that idea. I need to have some conversations with some folks from the Cape Cod Commission and from DHCD to see if any other towns have done this. In a way, this could essentially kind of kill two birds with one stone. getting the housing plan updated and the comprehensive plan. There's another piece of it that you guys are not directly involved with, but it's the same situation. The town's open space and recreation plan has also expired, and it's a plan that needs to be updated, and that one is even more important because there's a list of state grant programs that the town is eligible to apply for certain grants, similar to ones that the town recently received for open space acquisition. If the town does not have an approved open space and recreation plan, we can't even apply for those grants. So I'm trying to do the same thing with the update of the comprehensive plan to include a requirement that the consultants not only do an element or a chapter on open space and recreation, but to do so in a way that it would be able to serve as a standalone plan that could be submitted to the state for certification. Even if we can't get, plans that could be certified by the state, if we put the consultants on notice that that's our intent, we could probably get most of the requirements done, which would enable me to finish things off and submit them to the state for approval. So I wanted to let you know that, we're waiting to send out the RFP for the updating of the local comprehensive plan, and that we're looking at the feasibility of that, including a requirement for the consultants to produce a standalone housing production plan.
That's great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Elizabeth,
Yeah.
if I could ask a question?
Yes, of course.
Hi, Boss Mary.
Okay.
I seem to recall that having from my planning board, starting on planning board in 2015, I seem to recall that we had done the housing production plan and the open space plan relatively close together. Was it 2016 or was it 2017? Do you recall?
I need to check the dates. Both of the plans, I think, have separate timelines on when they expire from the state. So I need to look at when the plans were done and when they expired.
I want to say that they were 5-year plans, if I recall correctly, and that they were, and I want to say that the housing production was just prior to the open space and recreation. Because I know we talked about it sometime last year during the planning board. So just curious on those. I was wondering how far expired we were.
I'm pretty certain that the open space and recreation plans are good for 5 years. I'm less certain of how long the housing production plans are good for.
Okay, and I think, if memory serves, the consultant that helped on the housing production plan, I believe, is the consultant that the trust is working with, of doing the
Oh,
housing, affordable housing trust. I want to say it was the same,
No, it's not. No.
I think that they're-
the housing production plan.
Mary, let me just jump in here. I don't believe it is.
Okay.
The housing production plan was done by an individual back in 2016. It was approved in 2017. And the Housing Trust right now is putting together an action plan for their,
No, I know that,
benefit.
but I still thought the consultant was the same consultant.
yeah.
Lauren.
But
I'm trying to find her name.
to stay on that same topic, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Housing Trust is kind of looking towards the same person to that's putting their action plan together.
Yes, so our housing,
Yeah,
we have a consultant in place for that.
what's her name?
It's Jen Golson.
Jen Gold.
Okay, so you got one person doing both plans.
Maybe it wasn't, maybe it was Karen, maybe it was a
Just the
different
housing.
person. I thought it was somebody else, but I could be
It was.
wrong.
The last housing production plan was done by, I think, Carol Sonnenberg,
Yeah, that's right. That's what it was, yeah. Yeah.
and Jennifer Goldstein is the woman who's working on the action plan
That's
for
right.
the housing
Right.
trust.
Gotcha.
Right.
Oh,
Gotcha,
okay.
okay.
Great.
That cleared up.
But you gotta have an RFP anyway, or you get in trouble. So,
Oh,
Madam Chairman, the other thing that I'd like to update you on, that's relative to what we're working on housing is, I was asked to make a change to the accessory apartment bylaw. And the chairman of the Board of Selectmen explained to me that one of the specific things that they think was holding back homeowners from going forward with creating more accessory apartments was a minimum lot size requirement in various zoning districts. So I have a draft zoning bylaw that just kind of focuses on that one problem. Others have also expressed the same problem to me. And I can send a copy of the draft bylaw amendment out to the committee tomorrow, so that you can take a look at it, discuss it, and then provide any feedback to the planning board. We have a public hearing scheduled for the zoning amendments for February 28th, and we would welcome any feedback from the housing committee on that bylaw amendment.
Great.
That's awesome. I looked into that, Paul, but I was restricted on lot size.
So basically, instead of minimum lot sizes ranging between 15,000 square feet and 40,000 square feet, I've removed that, and what I'm recommending is just one minimum lot size of 10,000 square feet. I felt that smaller than a quarter of an acre might be too small a lot for both a primary dwelling and an accessory apartment, and I think that we would be able to capture, or that there'd be a lot more eligible properties by lowering it down to 10,000 square feet. Since the current bylaw already requires that both the primary dwelling and the accessory apartment comply with Board of Health regulations, that kind of addressed my concern of possible groundwater impacts from additional accessory apartments. So that's kind of the essence of what I'm proposing, and I will shoot a copy of that out to your committee and invite comments at the February 28th Planning Board public hearing.
Great, thank you.
Lovely. And talking of like partnerships, the CDP and HAC, I think, teamed up on that and have a whole plan program with that. So how I heard about it was on the radio, and you call this number that they have and they do all the footwork. Takes about a week, but they check everything. And then they come back with recommendations, any restrictions, what would help streamline it. They give, potential people that you can get in touch with. It's a beautiful thing.
Right.
Because a lot of people get overwhelmed by it. Anyways, we can take advantage of that if it all goes through.
Yeah, Paul, to add to a comment, a person in town is actually a town employee, wanted to take advantage of the ADUs and went to your predecessor, and she basically got the didn't say no, but didn't say yes, and the lot size was the stumbling block.
Right.
She wasn't on a 44,000 square foot lot or whatever the magic number is, and she wasn't going to, and the kicker was she wasn't going to increase the square footage of her house. She was going to subdivide her house, so the footprint was going to stay the footprint. It wasn't going to be expanded at all, but she was going to carve out a couple rooms that would be an ADU within her house, and because of that requirement of the 40,000 square foot, it was a stumbling block. But that's a good one. I think that's like the cork that will come out of the bottle, and we'll start getting some action on the ADUs.
Yeah. Great.
Thanks for that. That's kind of reassuring that we're on the right track.
You certainly are.
When I go to town meeting and I present the bylaw amendment, it would be very helpful for me to tell town meeting, the voters at town meeting, that the housing committee has reviewed this and supports it, if you end up supporting it. So I'd be looking for some kind of, an official vote. And then when I can tell the residents that the selectmen and the planning board and the housing committee all support this, that will help me to get it approved.
As long as once the actual article's written, we'd be happy to take a look at it. We can't vote on anything official if it's not what's going to be printed for the meeting. Because that's happened in the past, that we voted on a... What, Mary?
I think once we know what the bylaw is, we can vote on it. I don't think we have to wait until the article's written.
I think,
Because the bylaw's gonna be a precursor to the article.
I just want to make sure, there have been issues in the past with committees voting on an article, and then it's been changed at the last minute, so I think it's better to just make sure we have the article. That's all.
So again, you're talking two different things. You're not gonna have an article, because the articles get written later. I do think you can support it, because when the articles are ready, they're gonna print the warrant. So you want them to be able to say in the warrant that the housing committee and the planning board have supported it, right? Because the planning board has to put their recommendation in as a part of as a report, as a part of the warrant. So, I mean, I think once you know what the bylaw is, you're okay.
I see what you're saying. If you want it printed in the ballot that we have signed off on it, then we just vote on the bylaw. But if he's just going to tell people that the housing committee supports it, then we can wait.
That's my point.
Right, got it.
So what I'm gonna suggest is that we include on the agenda for the March 16th meeting an agenda item to discuss the draft bylaw amendment, and then we can take it from there.
Terrific.
Very good.
And what's there? Oh, and just so you know, I had a subcommittee meeting last week, and the housing, we gave the Assembly and Commissioners gave the Cape Cod Commission $1 million to do a housing study, which should be ready this spring. And we're holding $1.5 million for them to use when that study is complete, so they can help people go over all the zoning recommendations, all the changes, and so that should be helpful, hopefully. So, thank you for joining us.
Okay.
That good?
That's good, so we'll, motion to,
I got
Yeah.
one announcement to make.
okay, sorry.
Okay. On the 22nd of this month, the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting at 7 o'clock. And it's to bring up the 5 Bell's Neck Road project. John Kerry, and that's referenced the old schoolhouse and conversion into, I believe it's a total of 10 apartments. So I would reach out to anybody that can hear me to be there at that meeting and at least lean into supporting Mr. Carey in his efforts to create 10 units, 10 housing units here in town.
Can you give me that date and time again?
That's the 22nd
22nd, okay,
February?
thanks. All right, thank you.
at 7 p.m.
Thank you.
All right. The one thing on our agenda that we haven't covered is, do we wish to discuss the housing huddle meeting?
I wasn't there. I don't have anything to add.
It was held by the Housing to Protect Cape Cod, for people who don't know, which is an organization being put together by various organizations and realtors, and sort of based on Association to Protect Cape Cod, the water group that Andy Gottlieb runs. And Elisa Magnata, who from HAC, is very involved in it. And right now what they're sort of doing is a listening education tour. And they're going around to towns and having these meetings to explain to towns why housing is so crucial, what the effects are on a town. And so they did one in Harwich, and it was lovely. Oh. I'm chair now, I'm being nice. Art, you were there. Do you have anything to add?
Well, I was there, yeah. Someone asked me the question, well, are these things worthwhile? Well, for the last 6, 7, 8 years, I've been going to every single one that I can possibly go to, and maybe a few more. And a lot of the information is the same information over and over again. But every once in a while, there's some new information, which is always good. But if you look at the long view, look at the big picture, and you want the short answer is yes, it is good, because it constantly brings up to the forefront housing is a problem. If you don't keep beating that drum, after a while people say, I haven't heard the drum lately, I guess housing has been solved. No, you got to keep beating the drum. Even maybe you make the same comments time and time again, and you come up with the same solutions, but keep beating the drum, and eventually everyone will hear it, and hopefully we'll start moving forward and get some real results. But it is worthwhile, and there was a lot of good comments, and a lot of everyday people, how they're being affected by the fact that we don't have sufficient housing on Cape Cod at any affordable level, any level. Whether the affordability is no question at all, or you're living on a very stringent budget, it affects everybody.
And there were some interesting out-of-the-box ideas from, just public citizens that had nothing to do with any organizations. And that, I thought, was very worthwhile. So that's our recap. And now,
Can I jump in?
yes, please.
Excellent. Do you need me up there, or can you hear me from here?
Paul, can you
Mary?
hear her? Mary and Paul?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, yep.
Great.
So regarding the housing huddle, I was part of the organization and sit on the committee to do these in Harwich. We're doing another one March 8th at nighttime, so that the people that couldn't come during the day. What's different about this is that it's educating people so they understand who the housing is, or who the people are that need it. Not everyone is understanding, and it's important to educate everyone. This was to share that Outer Cape Health is affected, the school system's affected, the fire and police are affected. As we all know, there's not a definitive definition for workforce housing, and people are very confused by that term. Like they get it confused with seasonal housing. So this was a very good educational piece. It was very different than anything else that anyone's done. So I really hope that everyone that wasn't able to make the morning one will come to the evening one. It is very important. So when we get into town meeting, everyone is aware and can speak intelligently and smartly so that we can get things passed that need to get passed.
Excellent.
That's great, thank you.
Yeah, there's a term that we've started using in housing called the missing middle. Because workforce confuses people, and it's really for people, nurses and firemen and all, they do not make enough money. You have to make $180,000 a year in order to buy a house right now. So they don't make enough money to be able to do anything like that, but they make too much money to be able to get any help whatsoever from anybody. So that's the missing middle that people are talking about. Anybody else? Public comment? No. Okay. Art, last thoughts, any?
I'm all set. Thank you.
Good. Mary?
I'm all set.
Oh.
I'm glad, I will say one last thought is I'm glad to hear that there will be one at night, because these things during the day, for those of us that work, make it difficult.
Right. Excellent. And Claudia, anything?
Just to echo that, I'm looking forward to going the one at night. It sounds great, and definitely something that, we'd like to think we want to be a part of, certainly with the community. So thank you for doing that.
Excellent. All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Again,
Sorry, I'm on, you have to do a roll call.
we have to do a roll
Roll call,
call.
okay. Art Bowden, aye.
Mary,
Aye, aye.
Claudia,
Aye.
and Elizabeth Harder, aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all. Mary.
Sorry, I was like getting on there.
No, sorry about the.
Mary, we
Time
should
thing.
make sure we have your right email because we were sending